Are we recording?
Red, Buddy and I
Sweet.
were talking before just about best ways to kick this off, but you know significantly more about physical fitness and training than Buddy and I. So we were thinking, Buddy and I want to be more fit, generally speaking.
Always.
If there was only one exercise for us to do for the rest of our lives, what's the go-to?
That is an impossible question, but it's one of those things where I think that's what most people will come to me and say. It's like, hey, give me one thing.
Did I just ask the most basic question?
Give me like give me one thing to eat, one thing to do. What can I do that simplifies everything down to like a, Spark Notes version or something?
If Buddy and I were going to be Spartan-esque in our pursuit of this one exercise, what would it be? I
would probably say the deadlift, but that's only because it just is such a total system destroyer in the sense that you get so many good benefits from it. I also think that there's something inherently good about picking things off the ground and putting them back down. I mean, I think that's a skill that a lot of people will lose. If you see some, sometimes you see people who might be older or, for whatever reason, they've had different things happen to them in their life and they have a really hard time getting down to the ground and back up. Even tying their shoes can be like super difficult.
This is very revealing because while I work out, I never deadlift.
Well, I think I rarely deadlift as well. So.
I'm always worried of the risk reward ratio because I have a bunch of friends that work out that hurt themselves doing not even lifting heavy on deadlift. They just kind of forgot form for that one rep and tweaked their back and.
Yeah.
So I'm always afraid of it.
That's more indicative of a systematic issue. It's like somewhere in their programming or somewhere in their life, there's something that's creating that seed to then later become an injury. If you have things that are properly programmed, properly structured, very rarely will you have an issue unless there's a pre-existing issue that's already there. So
I've got those too, so that's
it's totally dependent on what you're looking for, though. I mean, if you came to me and said, "Hey, I want to be as jacked as possible. I don't care about lifting heavy weights." That is, I would say stay away from the deadlift. There's no point in doing that. It's so systemically taxing that you don't need it. You can do bicep curls and lat pull downs and do some hamstring curls.
See, now that's more.
Sounds like you.
That sounds a lot more like what I do.
That sounds like me. That's my sport. So that makes sense. But if you're going to talk to someone like Gabe, my coworker, he's a powerlifter. Like he needs to deadlift. If you talk to someone who is in their 80s or their 70s for that matter, and they say, "Hey, I want to be just generally more fit. I want to have more longevity. I want to have more total body strength," we are absolutely going to deadlift them.
Wow.
All right. Well,
really good for that.
That's a challenge.
Insight.
Yeah.
Challenge
Do you deadlift
accepted.
at all? I've seen you deadlift
Really?
at that the Army fitness test years ago when you were trying to get a perfect score. You crushed that deadlift. I thought this is way too much
Haven't
deadlift right now.
since that day.
Deadlift is not at the beginning of that. I feel like it's like a couple things in, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, what? You already did X amount of things.
The new Army PT test has deadlift as a part of it, which is pretty.
And they added this trap bar, isn't it? It's the hexagon bar.
It is.
Yeah.
All right. So clearly there's some nuance to that my question didn't have, but Red, we're really excited to have you on. For those listening, Red has become a good friend, is local to Rockbridge County and here in Lexington. And there's so many interesting aspects to who you are. I think you're about the easiest podcast because we could take this in 100 different directions.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure it'll go in 100 different directions.
Yeah, I hope it does. You've been a professional sports team trainer. You currently own your own personal training facility. You're a bodybuilder. You're a big biker. Just went to Sturgis.
That's right.
North Dakota. South Dakota.
Yeah.
You're all over the place. There's so many different dimensions to you. We've dabbled in some business enterprises together. Hopefully there'll be some more in the future, but really excited to have you on. And so could you give a brief snapshot of what you're doing right now with your wife, Jane, here in Lexington?
For sure. And first of all, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate this. I was really looking forward to this.
This is great.
Absolutely, man.
So, the snapshot of what we're doing here is my background is pro and college sports. I started off interning actually with VMI's football team, and through a series of very odd events, and thanks to a lot of people just we've met over the years, I ended up in the Washington Nationals big league weight room, working there for 2 years. And that was an amazing experience. And I'm so grateful to everyone who helped me get there. And Matt, I'm the head strength and conditioning coach at the time, who just gave me an opportunity. That was a great thing. And then from there, I went to ODU and worked there for a little bit. And then lastly was with DC United up in DC as the head strength and conditioning coach for the soccer team there. And throughout our time in college and pro sports, me and Jane, I think it reminds me of some things from your story where we were always apart. You know, we had just gotten married actually at Big Spring Farm here 5 years ago.
Love
more
it.
than 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
And we were never together. You know, she would go to work during the day. She'd come home at night. I would be gone at 2 p.m. for pro sports things a lot of times. Or, you know, on the other end of things, I'd get out of the house at 4 a.m. and I'd be gone until well after the sun went down, just because that's the lifestyle of that career path. And we wanted to get to a place where we could be together more. And we kept looking for a town like Lexington to live in. And finally, Jane just said, hey, dude, you know, we keep looking for a town like Lexington. We keep looking for a job that would fit your career path. Let's just make one in Lexington. And it was this light bulb moment where we were kind of like, why have we not thought of this yet? But it seems so simple. But at the time, we were so blinded with what was going on in our own lives. And this is also, you know, peak COVID too, when I was working for DC United, where we were totally lost in that. We were at home. We had she had a lot of free time. You know, she was still working at the time, doing home visits and things, but she was in Chesapeake, Virginia, working down there, and I was in DC, and then we'd be together, and then we'd be apart, and we just had enough of this. So we moved here. We opened up the gym. Our focus for the gym was, oftentimes I feel that there's this veil that covers what pro and college guys do, where people think there's some secret, you know, one exercise that all the pros are doing. And they need to know it. And we thought about, okay, let's rip that veil down and let's give everyone exposure to what the pro guys are doing. Let's give everyone exposure to what college guys are doing. And let's do it in a way that's accessible to everybody. Because a lot of the times when you get to that level, all of a sudden you're charging $1 billion for this kind of thing. And it needs to be more accessible than price-wise, location-wise, as far as ability-wise too. I mean, there's a wide range of athletes you work with at even the pro level. Even though they're professional athletes, they may not have had exposure to this kind of thing before. So you have to introduce it to them in a very accessible way. And we're giving that to now people that are in middle school, and we're also giving it to, you know, we have clients that are in their 70s and 80s. And it's been such a fun experience so far, especially in Lexington, where this community is so amazing as far as the culture of it, as far as the people. I mean, I've never met so many nice people in such a small circle. It's one of those situations where you meet someone and you go, okay, what's the catch? You know, coming from Northern Virginia, which is an unbelievable place to grow up, but you know, there's so many people there. If something's too good to be true, it often is in life. Down here, it's oddly not. You know, these people are wonderful and they're just super nice and they want to see you succeed because you're a member of their community. So yeah. That's how we got here.
Soft pitch for Lexington.
Yeah, that's right. You might get a few more of those.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can you go back to VMI briefly, why you chose VMI, your big takeaways from VMI, and when you had that first spark of, okay, I want to train other people to maximize their physical potential. Like when did that click for you?
Yeah, so I actually played baseball at VMI and I got hurt very early in my career. The motivation to go to VMI was I've oftentimes made really big decisions based on, is there if there's a reason why I don't want to do it, it's not worth it. So, you know, I thought about doing a million things in my life. Going to grad school is one of them. And then I look at it and go, okay, well, it's really expensive. I'll have to cut out time that I created all this momentum in my career. I'll have to halt that to go to school. Okay, that's not worth it. And even smaller decisions. If it's like, hey, do I really want to go out and get chocolate ice cream tonight? Well, I have to get in my car and I'm already in my pajamas. I think we're going to not do that. Right. And if it's green light, you know what? I will change for this chocolate ice cream. Then it's worth doing and I should do it. With VMI, I came from Northern Virginia. I've always been around. There weren't a lot of hurdles, I would say, coming from Northern Virginia. I mean, I grew up in a really good family. My parents were super supportive. We always had, money. It wasn't like we were struggling to get a meal. So there was green lights the whole way through, all the way through high school. And then I get to college, and it's almost like I needed a yellow light. I needed something in my way that would create resistance so that I could prove to myself, okay, I can do this. I can be tough, because to this point, I haven't really had to be that tough. So went to VMI, got there, started playing baseball, got hurt. This was my first real hurdle was, initially VMI, just because of the challenge that presents. But secondly, being hurt and not being able to play baseball, having my entire identity wrapped up in being a baseball player. And now all of a sudden, I'm just a normal guy out of military school, and I think that from there, it was one of those things where I'm going to continue to just roll through BMI, because I know that the investment, this is going to be worth it in the long run. As far as career path, I have no idea what I wanted to do. I actually went to my, I remember this distinctly. I went to one of my advisors at BMI, and I said, I really think I want to be a psychologist. I want to get a PhD in psychology. I want to do the whole thing. And he kind of looked at me. He looked down at his computer where my grades were, looked back at me, and he goes, I think you might need to think about doing something else. And I don't think he was being rude, but he was just kind of like, okay, the reality situation is, if you want to get to do a PhD program out of undergrad, you have to be really, really academically inclined.
Yeah.
And I was not in that category of people. Yeah. So I didn't know what I wanted to do after college. I actually applied to a welding school out in South Dakota, doing automotive welding, because I was like, all right, I'll own my own motorcycle business. Right. At the time, there was a guy in Buena Vista, the neighboring town over, and he had this motorcycle shop.
What was the name of that?
Something Power Sports.
Yeah, it's on the tip of my brain, because I remember swinging by there.
Yeah,
back in the day. Anyway, sorry.
No, I rode up to this place, and I met the guy, and I had wanted him to do some work on my bike, and he's like, okay, yeah, we can do that. We got to talking, and he said, why don't you come work for me? I'll teach you the ropes, and I'm looking to get out of this. I'll sell you the business.
Oh my goodness!
I thought, this is it. This is an opportunity.
You went from doctorate program to possibly motorcycle mechanic in the next town over.
I have been. At one point, I was going to be a doctor. I wanted to be a firefighter. I wanted to go to the military at one point. I wanted to do everything.
Yeah.
Again, it's like all these things have created hurdles that I wasn't worth. It wasn't worth me pushing through those hurdles to get there. So I just decided not to do it. I was ready to go to welding school. I actually got into a couple of grad programs for kinesiology, strength and conditioning at the time. And I thought I was going to do that. And I met my middle school girlfriend's, I saw my middle school girlfriend's dad at the grocery store over winter break while I was interning for BMI doing this stuff. And the only reason I was doing the, strength and conditioning was because I needed something to do. I had graduated college. Someone had told me what to do up until this point. And now there's no one saying, hey, this is the next step. So I just figured, I like this stuff. I'll stick around and do this while I'm waiting for that next step. And he, knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody, and they got me an interview for an internship with the Nats. And that's how it all took off from there.
Dang.
So
that's crazy.
It was wild.
That's crazy, the timing of that.
Yeah.
So, and you and Jane, were you dating while you're at VMI, or at what point in that story is she with you going up to DC to work with the Nationals?
We've been really, really good friends since high school.
Okay.
We knew each other in high school. We met, I was a junior. She was a sophomore. She was in my chemistry class. And that's always been the big joke, is like, you guys got chemistry starting in chemistry class. So yeah, very nice. But then we didn't start dating till I was in college. And then basically, on and on again, off again in freshman year. And then from sophomore year on, she's always been there. So,
gotcha.
And she's been really I would say the catalyst for a lot of the big things we've done, where I'm not risk adverse by any means. I will dive into something 100 miles an hour, but I know that about myself. So I tend to say, okay, hold on a second. Is this a good call? And if she says, hey, it's a green light, I know I can go running in through that door. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Super cool.
That's awesome. So you're with the Washington Nationals. You're dabbling for the first time in doing this professionally. What was that experience like, working with professional athletes?
It's unbelievable. I mean, it was one of those things where it felt not real. I always wanted to be a professional baseball player. And, in college that got taken away from me. And I get
with the injury.
With the injury, yeah. And other. I mean, come on. But the honest truth is that to be a pro baseball player at the big league level, you have to be the top one of the 1%. I mean, you were so good, so much better than everybody else. And I was good. I was a good baseball player.
What position you play?
I was a catcher.
Okay.
And I was arguably a better high school player than I was college, because college was beginning my injuries and things like that. But I got it. I got there, and I thought for sure that this was going to be my career. This was going to be forever. I was going to be a pro baseball player. And I kind of, in a weird way, I think forced it so hard that this wasn't right. So path deviated in a weird way, got there, through, middle school girlfriend's dad, who would, again, thank you so much, Mr. Kramer. I mean, that was unbelievable, but got there in a different way. Didn't know if I wanted to be there at the time. I remember telling my boss at the time early on, I'm not sure that I want to be at the pro level. Maybe I want to be a coordinator. Maybe I want to do something. I want to do college. And just stuck around, really enjoyed every day that I was there. But again, would never saw a game. I mean, I would work from 10 a.m. to 1 and 2 in the morning sometimes.
And were you traveling with the team when they go on?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So the story that I love is the first time I went on the road, we were going to Miami, and we get on the plane. I buckle my seatbelt, and I'm sitting there, turn my phone off. Yeah. I'm totally silent. And the assistant gets on the plane.
Like you would on a plane.
Yeah. The assistant gets on the plane. He's like, dude, unbuckle your seatbelt, turn your phone on right now, or everyone's going to make fun of you.
Loser.
It's so silly. And I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, I ordered bison burger on the plane.
Oh my gosh.
It was an unbelievable experience. I get to the hotel, and in college, you have road roommates, and in BMI at the time, we had
they cram a lot into one.
It's about efficiency. Yeah,
I'm sleeping on the floor. There's a guy like next to the radiator. We might get a cot. If you get a cot, you are living life, dude. They roll that sucker in, and it's always a race to the front desk. Who can get the cot?
Who can get the cot?
The one cot at this hotel has. So I get to the hotel, and I'm expecting, okay, they probably have enough cots for everybody. So this is the Four Seasons. They definitely. Yeah. So I asked the assistant. I said, "Hey, dude, who's my road roommate? Is it you?" He goes, "This is the big leagues. We don't have road roommates.
You get your own room to yourself."
I get in the elevator. I go to my room. I check in. It's one of those deals where you can even you can tip the guys to bring your bags.
Oh yeah,
they can have. And every room we had set up that every player's room had a goodie bag with hydration mix and all kinds of different stuff in it, so that they could rejuvenate before the game. And I get to my room, and I'm feeling really good. My sister at the time is going to school at University of Miami for grad school. And I call her because it's in Miami.
Yeah.
So I said, dude, you got to come check this room out. Never been in a room this nice in my life.
Oh, the Four Seasons in Miami. Oh, and that's
I'm looking
awesome.
Out the window, and there's like a rooftop pool that's just below my room. And I'm thinking to myself, this is living.
Yeah, yeah.
So she comes to the room. We get in the elevator, and Max Scherzer was on the team at the time. And me and him had worked a good chunk together at this point. He's coming down, we're going up, and we get in as he's walking out. He's like, "Hey, Red, what's going on?" I'm like, "Hey, Max, how's it going?" We get in the elevator, and I look at my sister, and she has no idea what just happened. And I look at her, I go, "You know who that was, right?" She goes, because I'm waiting for her to be super excited, like I was, the first day I walked in and saw all these guys.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I have no idea who that was." I said, that's definitely a Hall of Fame pitcher. Probably the most famous baseball player you will ever see in LA. She's like, "That's awesome."
Yeah.
She's not that
I need to Google it.
Fan.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
But it was a very cool experience.
Were you impressed? I have a vision of what a professional athlete would be like, lifestyle wise, work ethic wise, but did these guys blow you away with their approach to the game and their preparation?
The preparation, absolutely. Approach to the game, for sure. I mean, it's one of those things where it's unusual to see someone that focused on one single task. I mean, when you see it, it's usually around highly successful people. I mean, I see it in you guys sometimes when you're talking about your respective disciplines, where someone is willing to do something so crazy to make it work that all their entire life is focused on that one task. So I remember days when I'd walk through the clubhouse and guys would be, sitting on a chair with another chair in front of them with scouting reports for, I walk in there at, I'd say 2:00 in the afternoon. By 4, they might still be sitting there looking at that, or they're at BP, or they're doing something else that's specifically designed to make them a better baseball player for that day. As far as the personalities of the guys, I mean, they're so unbelievably normal. It blew me away too, because I was expecting these major league robots that you see on TV, where the guys come out and, you know, they're warming up and they're having a good time, and the crowd is almost not there to them. These are totally normal dudes. They're very aware sometimes of what's going on with the crowd. Sometimes they're not. But they're, you know, if we're talking about video games or some football game that's going on, or what kind of food they want to eat tomorrow, or what they're looking forward to on the road. I mean, they're such normal guys that surprised me quite a bit when I first got there. And in their willingness, I would say, to, when you're on the team, you're part of the team. And I thought of myself as very little at that point. I mean, I was doing all I could to be there, and they welcomed me in like I had been with them for 10 years. You know, there's an initial stage of breaking the ice, of them getting to trust you and feel you out a little bit. But once you're on the team, you might as well be playing shortstop for them that night. They value every member of the team that highly, I would say.
Wow, that's really cool. Because I just would make up that, you know, like you're getting on that plane and you're one of the strength coach guys, and they're, you know, I don't know the names of the guys from that era, but this dude's walking on with a $50 million a year contract, you know, and he's like, hey, what's up, Red? You know, and that there might be sort of, not that he would think less of you, but there just might be some sort of barrier to connection, and that they're on this different level, fame wise and resources wise, all those things. Sure. So that's really cool to hear that that's not actually the vibe in the clubhouse.
Yeah. And again, that's at least for my experience at that time. There might be different experiences in different clubhouses.
Right.
A lot of the guys would talk about, if they got traded to the Nats during that era, they would say how they liked the way we were doing things. And, you know, I think it also depends on who you ask, because some of the AAA guys that were coming up and down, I mean, those are the guys that can tell you how good of a life you have, because they go to AAA, which might as well be, I mean, a totally different.
They're back on the cots. They're not in the four seasons anymore.
Luckily, I got to skip that step, so I didn't see it. But, you know, there are some stories from single A, double A that are just, I played with guys that were at that level and they're still at that level, and they're eating Subway after games. I mean, they're just scraping by.
Yeah, that's a hard life.
AAA is like this little bit better, and usually you fly to games there. But when you get to the big leagues, it's 180. I mean, it's crazy how much better it is. So.
Yeah, that is so awesome.
Man, how did you go from being wishy-washy about, I don't know if I want to be here, to being the head trainer at DC United? Like, what changed? What transpired in that time frame?
By accident. It's all been by accident. Everything we've done has been a little bit of by accident.
I love the honesty, because that's so true. It's like,
it wasn't part of the master plan.
Yeah, there wasn't the scheme of, I will take over DC United.
Well, I think the cool thing for me has been, when I was a kid, it was, you need to pour every moment of every day into this to be a professional baseball player. And now looking back on it, I think that I generally recommend to kids, hey, do a lot of different things, because it's probably going to happen by accident. You know, most people don't work in the career path of what they go to college for. So when I was with ODU at the time, I loved my time there. And I actually thought, we bought a house. I mean, it was literally not in the cards that we were going to go back to DC. And we bought a house, and probably a couple months after buying the house, I got a call from one of my buddies who said, hey, you know, the Nats are in the playoffs right now. Of course, they are going to the World Series right after I leave. So you should come up. We'll go to a game, stuff like that. So me and my family actually went up with Jane, and we're hanging out, watching this game. My buddy calls me, he's an intern for DC United at the time as an athletic trainer. One of the greatest dudes you'll ever meet, but also one of those guys who he'll call you at 2 a.m. and be like, hey, let's go out.
It's already the end of the night.
If I go out with him, it's always an adventure. I mean, we could end up all over the world. So he calls me, he says, hey, come out for drinks after the game with me and our performance director. I said, great, I'll definitely do that. So I told Jane and my dad, who were at the game with me, said, hey, I'm going to go out with this guy. You guys go ahead and go home. And we go out to this place in DC right next to the stadium. We grab some margaritas, and probably like a couple too many margaritas. And then all of a sudden I started talking to this performance director and I'm telling him everything I think they're doing wrong.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like, hey, this is dumb. This is dumb. Don't do that. This is silly. Like, this is the way you should structure it. And
regarding their training plans.
Their
Yeah.
training plans.
Yeah.
I know nothing about what they're doing other than like what I think.
Yeah.
I'm telling him exactly how I would run.
What's an example
Yeah,
that you can remember?
So soccer is very, I'm painting with a very broad brush here, but soccer generally can be, they're very advanced when it comes to sports science, analytics, understanding, okay, this is load management, all the stuff you hear about with like the NBA, for example, now. Mm-hmm. They're very good at that. I think sometimes they miss the bill when it comes to general strength and conditioning because they think, okay, we're a very aerobic sport, but there's a lot of performance gains to be had in lifting weights for those guys. You have to understand the priority still has to be on the running, on the soccer component, but you can get performance gains there. And I think that you see that with some of the guys who are the best in the world, even though it's a heavy skill sport. I mean, it's highly based in how good you are at soccer. But I told him that. I said, hey, you guys don't do any plyometrics. Some of the stuff I see online is absolutely ludicrous. I mean, you can watch the best teams in the world and they do some silly stuff. And I'm going off on a side, basically. And we get to the end, and everyone's kind of silent. I'm sitting there thinking, this guy's either going to punch me in the face or he's going to tell me I'm right. So we're sitting there. Sure enough, he goes, I would like to talk to you about you working at DC United. And
my gosh.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
So
best case scenario.
Yeah. And at the time thinking about working with my, one of my best friends, I was like, this is going to be killer. So over the next couple of months, that whole thing unfolded. They actually ended up calling, from what I understand, calling the Nats and saying, hey, can you give this guy a reference? Because that's who was on my list. And I didn't know this, but the Nats at the time were trying to work on a package to present to me to come back to the Nats.
Because you went Nats, ODU, DC United. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm sitting there in Norfolk, Virginia, at a job that I really liked. And we just bought a house. And all of a sudden I had two major sports teams contacting me saying like, hey, let's figure this out.
Oh my gosh.
And, again, my time at ODU was a blast. Thanks, Coach Finney, for everything he offered me because he did a great job of running that team down there. And they actually won a conference championship right after I left as well. So I have a really bad habit of leaving places. But
that's just all the seeds you sowed there just coming to fruition. And then,
I know. Or it's a really bad seed. As soon as they start winning. But it was, again, total accident. I stumbled along the whole way.
And you went with DC United Vice, the Nats, because
they were offering me a head job. I think that the Nats at that point, I loved working for Matt, the head guy, he's an amazing strength coach. He's actually with the Guardians now in Cleveland. But I think it was an opportunity. I had gone to ODU and really kind of spread my wings, learned how to run a system. And I wanted an opportunity to do that at a higher level. Plus, I could work with one of my best friends. The rest of the staff with DC United had become some of my best friends. I mean, they're great guys. They all are very brilliant. So it was just an opportunity to throw myself once again into the fire and kind of have to prove myself in a way versus going back to something a little more comfortable, I think.
Sure. What were the big takeaways from DC United time and then your transition from that job to where you're at now?
Key takeaways from DC United. I would say it was a very tough year. I mean, we had many things happen throughout that whole year. One of them being, our head coach, who everyone really liked, got fired. He moved on. Assistant stepped up. He took the reins. We were a middle of the pack team on the cusp of the playoffs, and this whole time COVID's going on. So we played 2 games. We got shut down, I think, the day after our second game, and we had no idea at the time what was going on in the world. So we heard this rumor of something happening, and then all of a sudden, the next day, gone, done. So we went home, we sent the players home. All the staff put on gloves, masks, like almost hazmat of what we had just laying around. And we built these packages for guys to come pick up one by one in their cars. So we were literally
were they like workout, training regimen stuff?
We didn't have training plans yet because it just happened. So we were totally unprepared for this. I think everyone was. Yeah. Everyone was kind of like, what do we do? So we were literally putting the gym equipment in baggies and sending it home with players. We had guys that would come up with their cars one by one. Like we had guys scheduled every 30 minutes where they'd pull up, we'd load their car with equipment and send them home.
Oh my gosh.
And we worked in the next, I would say, 3 to 5 days on putting together a package for these guys so that we could figure out what we were doing. And I mean, this is all having to happen super fast. So we had me, our head PT, our assistant athletic trainer, our head athletic trainer, the whole medical team was totally focused. And this is, I think that the medical director had just left as well. The guy who had hired me, he just left as well. His family was all in the UK, and that had to have been tremendously difficult. So he went home. So we're scrambling. We worked day and night to get these packages out, and we built something really cool. And it was the precursor, I think, to a lot of these apps that you see now that are totally online. And it's all on Google Sheets. And we're sitting there throwing this thing together. We come up with something we're really proud of. We send it out, and we're sitting at home. We had to do the MLS's back tournament that year too, which was a bubble in Florida. It was the same thing as the NBA's bubble. We just had a bubble like the week before. We were actually the first sports league to go back into live action.
Oh, okay.
That came
with no fans, right? You're just in an empty stadium.
And not even stadium. We're in Disney. They sent us to Disney. All the teams are set up at different hotels. If there was
were like the rides open and stuff, or
no,
okay,
you can do rides.
I'm just picturing all these professional athletes and their staff like running amok at the Disney World Bowl. Yeah, exactly.
No, we're in Disney. We're at the Swan and the Dolphin, all these really nice hotels. We're staying there. They're testing every day.
Oh man!
And we're not just doing the nose swab. It's like the brain swab one, like the one that gets up in your brain, and it's tough. We're having a hard time.
Yeah,
and we're away from our families and. If someone had a negative or a positive or inconclusive test, they shut the whole thing down. So it's a mess, the whole thing. They did a good job for what they had, the information they had at the time, but it was just a zoo.
Yeah.
And we dealt with that whole thing. It was just, it was ordeal after ordeal after ordeal. And during this time at this MLS's back tournament, they had built these gyms that were phenomenal gyms. And once the tournament was over, they said, okay, we're going to sell all this equipment. And it was I think a lot of the players and coaches and staff didn't really understand how good of deals these were, because is
this like Rogue equipment? Like
it's not even, it's really, Rogue is incredibly nice as we have at the gym here at RB, but it's Kaiser, which is a company based out of California, and this other company called Beaver Fit, which they make the,
never heard of them. That's cool.
You would love their stuff.
Beaver Fit. Write that down.
Basically think storage containers, but inside is all the storage for the equipment, and the exterior is like pull down squat racks.
Oh, cool.
They use it in the military now.
I was going to say, we had them
as like a mobile gym. You just drop it.
They literally drop them in and they just land this thing on the ground.
That's
and
genius.
You can have mobile gyms in Afghanistan or wherever. It's really cool.
That's an awesome business start.
Beaver Fit, if you're listening.
Yeah. You want to do a podcast?
Yeah, we need you. We need you to come to Lexington.
So they had Beaver Fit boxes in the ballrooms essentially, and all this Kaiser equipment. The Kaiser bikes are super nice. They're like some of the best spin bikes in the world. They do everything based on air resistance. So they have these pistons that fill up with pressure. So your resistance is constant tension. So if you pull that handle at 100 miles an hour, or you don't, pull it really slowly, it's the same weight no matter what.
Whoa.
And these machines they're expensive. I mean,
they were liquidating all this stuff.
They're getting rid of all of it. And they're saying, hey, we'll sell it to you at like 1/3 of the cost.
So did you buy a bunch of stuff?
I bought a ton of stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. Were you thinking at the time personal use, or were you thinking I could start a gym maybe, and I'm going to get all this gear now?
This is if I let's just say, to make me look smart, that I had that foresight, but I didn't at all. I literally am a sucker for a good deal. And I saw these things and I go, I could probably flip them. I could do whatever I wanted to with these. But more than anything, I just wanted to have a killer home gym.
Yeah.
So I bought a bunch of stuff. Our players bought a bunch of stuff, and I didn't have anywhere to put it. So I freaked out a little bit. And I called my parents and I go, hey, can I use your garage and just throw this stuff in there? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. Again, they're super supportive. So I remember driving all the equipment down. They had just moved to Fairfield, which is just north of Lexington. And they had this massive storage area. And I just dumped all of my equipment that I had just bought. And
they're like, Red,
this is not new. I mean, this is like, I can't tell you how many times I called them and be like, hey, I bought this basketball hoop.
Great deal.
I agree. It was a great deal.
I need to put it somewhere. Can I put it at your house? And they always said yes. But I think they're always kind of like rolling their eyes at me too.
So sometime in 2020, you're thinking, you make the decision. Jane's like, hey, let's do our own thing. Let's move to that town we love. Yeah, it's funny to think of here in 2020 compared to like what you were going through with that whole, like the literal bubble that you were in. We were in our own bubble here without the formal organization of it, being a bubble. But yeah, when you're in a smaller community, it was like, I hesitate to say it was like normal, but it was probably much more air quotes normal than a lot of places.
Yeah, especially DC. I mean, DC was, we would go outside. I remember lifting before. So we gave all the equipment from the gym at the facility away to the players. So I remember there were backyard lifts that I would do with Jane where we were literally lifting our dog up, like our 50-pound yellow lab, and doing like air squats with, our yellow lab and doing stuff like that. And we kind of started to formulate this idea of opening up a brick and mortar. Everyone told us not to do it because middle of COVID, everything kind of shifted online, especially in the fitness space. And the fitness space was almost entirely online where people were still going to the gym, but they were staying 6 feet away from people. But everyone was telling me personal training's dead. Go online, do it online. You'll be able to reach more of an audience. I
feel like all of my friends bought Pelotons in 2021.
Exactly.
There was so much social pressure to buy a Peloton.
And then tonal stuff came out. The mirror came out, and Under Armour owns it, or Lululemon owns the mirror. Like I have all these things that are going to be in your house, whatever. And me and Jane just kept thinking to ourselves, well, we want to do this anyway, kind of stubbornly, but also there's going to be a time where I think things shift back a little bit. So we started looking at properties down here. As you guys know, in Lexington, there was nothing. I mean, there was literally nothing. And I was getting super discouraged.
Real estate inventory is limited.
And it's just one of those things where I think it speaks to how thriving the downtown is, where a lot of the storefronts are taken. And I was like, this is the spot. We already have an in with VMI. This is where we need to be. And serendipitously, we walk downtown one day and we're just hanging out, and we walk into my wife's favorite clothing store, and my mom and my wife are like looking around, poking around the store, and they start to notice that the furniture is for sale, the clothing is for sale, like everything that's not screwed to the floor is for sale. And we knew the manager fairly well. My mom walks up to her and goes, "Are you guys leaving? Because this is a little odd." And she goes, "Yeah, we're actually closing." And this is on Main Street in Lexington, in front of one of the most historic hotels downtown. And this is like, okay, this is too good to be true. We asked her, "Is anyone moving in after you guys?" They go, "Well, they haven't really talked about it yet." So I said, "Okay, we need to be in here first." So we had a meeting with the property manager. He introduced us to the owner, Ugo, the guy who owns the Gin Hotel. He was totally open to the idea. They didn't have a gym at the time, or at least not a big one. So it was perfect fit for us. And we got in there, and
did you have a business plan? Did you know what you wanted to do? Like, where were you at in your entrepreneurial mindset?
Journey? Yeah. And this is what I tell people often is I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to business. I am not a business guy. I didn't take a single business class in college or high school or anything for that matter. I know weights and I can do that stuff. And I'm pretty confident in my ability there. But the business stuff, we are stumbling along head first into all this. And it's taught me, I've learned a lot along the way, but no, we didn't have a business plan. I can work hard. So the first 6 months of owning RB, I worked, I think it was 78 hours a week to just try to make it work. And, there were days when I'd sit in there and I remember our first client, this guy named Alex Saban, awesome dude, laser scientist. The guy's a brilliant dude.
Okay.
And he walks in, he goes, "Hey, I signed up for 6 p.m. tonight. Do I need to bring anything?" And I thought to myself, this is so cool. This is a customer. I've had friends and family in, but
how did you find the laser scientist?
So this guy, he found us. He had just moved to town literally the same day that we had opened our doors, the first day we were open. And he Googled gyms near me, and we were something that popped up on Google. And he poked his nose in the door and decided to sign up. And
so you threw some weights in the building. You had a website.
Yeah.
And you flipped closed to open on the door.
And you had a good location, being right on Main Street. Everybody in the area is going to spend some amount of time downtown, or even just have to drive through.
Yeah.
So they'd see you. We
also did something that was, again, in retrospect, very smart in the sense that we left everything. We didn't put any paper in the windows. A lot of people, when you see construction going on, you see paper in the windows or someone opening a business, they kind of hide it a little bit. We didn't do that because I didn't see a point in spending the $5. We had no money. I mean, we spent all of our money on equipment. Me and Jane's life savings had gone all towards this pursuit of this gym. And I literally was thinking to myself, we don't have the $10 to spend on
paper. Yeah. Just let them see.
So we were, we thought, whatever, it doesn't matter. So we were doing stuff in the space for a couple of weeks leading up into our opening. And people were walking by. I can't say how many people did this in the glass. And
I was one of those people. I remember. And then I was, oh gosh, he's in there. And then we started talking.
It was so hard to see in that space. Unless you're right up on it. I scared some people that But so we flipped the sign to open, and laser scientist Alex comes knocking on our door. One of the nicest guys I've ever met too. Again, this is early in our new experience to Lexington, and we're meeting people, and I'm thinking to myself, this guy's so nice. He's such a cool dude too, and a laser scientist in the very least. And he had a good experience. He signed up again. He told one person, that person told two people, and the town of Lexington, they will support you if you have something that's worth supporting. So it was, again, total accident.
So it kind of grew from word of mouth, you would say?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So you had the location, that initial customer, and then.
And once again, we got really lucky because we hired our friend, Bree, who is a brand designer up in New York City. She's big time brand designer. I mean, this is like we had no business working with her. And she goes, okay, I can help you guys with this journey. So we spent some money on designing the logo, building the website. She helped us all with the whole process of all this. And we get to this point where we have this really cool, and I tried to mess it up along the way too. Like we had this really cool logo that she had built us after weeks of working on it. And I kept saying like, well, I think we need to do this, this, and this. And she's like, I promise you.
No, Red.
You're not going to.
Down boy.
Stop, Red. Stop.
But this is my baby. I built this from nothing. Yeah. So I was so controlling over it. And then finally, I just this is the professional, lean into this. And we ended up with something really cool. She killed it on our website. It looks gorgeous.
Oh yeah, I love the logo. You can recognize it from far away, which is fun. Like on social media, you can tell if somebody's wearing one of your hats or wearing one of your shirts. It's pretty cool.
And that was the idea. The idea was to design a logo. And of course, I tell her I have these crazy ideas. Where I'm like, all right, so Nike. That small brand.
Heard of them?
And Apple, same thing. I want kind of like that.
The icon.
Just going like, okay, I got you.
Yeah.
So,
this reminds me of when we started the farm and we were going through names. This is before Big Spring for the livestock business and meat sales. I wanted to call, this is perfect for it, Red, you'll appreciate this. I wanted to call our farm Meathead Farm.
I love it.
Because my friends and I in college always joked about how we were, quote, meatheads because we loved to work out and whatever. And Jill, who is thank God, our marketing, our marketing director, will say, she was like, absolutely not. And I'm like, it's like Boar's Head. It could be like a luxury brand, but kind of tongue in cheek, meathead.
Yes.
She's like, it sounds gross, first of all.
No one wants to buy you.
Yeah.
Except for me.
Yeah, exactly. I would have a small segment of the market totally locked down.
This is the new business pitch for us.
Yeah.
Meathead Farms. No, it was literally that same story where I wanted to have it be, some super meatheady name. I wanted the logo to be, some super meathead logo. All our colors were going to be red and black.
Yeah.
And Jane's looking at us going, dude, no one is going to come to this place. Think about the population you're serving in Lexington and the message that you're trying to portray of this super inclusive place for everybody to work out.
It can't be like West Side Barbell or something.
Well, that's literally Rockridge Barbell. Like that's And we're like, okay, how close can we get to the edge of being a total meatheads versus being the place that we want to be?
Yeah.
And
you walk that line beautifully, I will say. Because you look in there and you see all the squat racks. You see all of everything in there. I'm sure you have, metal plates, but there's so many rubber plates and everything's like designed to be dropped. You can tell it's an intense gym.
Yeah.
But at the same time, half the time that I see somebody working out in your gym, it's like clearly, retired, lady or something like that. It's
is not me and Gabe are bald dudes with tattoo sleeves.
Yeah.
Like it's not that. That's not the population we serve.
Right.
It's not the aim that we had initially either. It's how can we make this place comfortable for the, maybe it's a middle school athlete who's never lifted weights before, or it's sorority girl, Nell, who has all this conditioned ideas in her head of, I'm going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger if I touch a 5-pound weight, or it's I'm retired, I'm 80 years old, I've never lifted weights, or I did back in the day, but I hurt myself. How do you remove all those barriers and say, this is a place that is for you as well? This isn't just for the meatheads, which we definitely are.
Yeah,
this is also,
that's okay.
Yeah, this is also for everybody else, and it doesn't need to be this scary, intimidating place. So through, I think, again, Brie Delacorna, who did our logo and our website design and all our branding, and through Jane helping me not hurt myself, essentially, in the way I was designing this place, we built this place where I think that we also were very intentional about the name. So there's this guy named Eric Cressy, who's the head of performance. Let me say this, he's probably the best baseball strength and conditioning coach in the country. I mean, the guy is unbelievably talented. And he wrote this article this one time that I read that basically said that if you name your business after yourself, it becomes really hard to separate your image with that business. And you become the guy that everybody wants to work with, and you can't diversify or grow in that way. So it becomes really difficult. So we didn't want to name it Red's Gym for that reason. We also didn't want to name it Red's Gym because I think that immediately in my head said, this is this person's gym. Instead, we went with Rockbridge because this is Rockbridge Gym. This is, if you removed me from the gym should still stand. And that's what we wanted. We wanted this place to be for everyone that lives here, not, this isn't my garage gym that I'm opening up to the public. Instead, this is everybody else's gym that I get to also work out at. I'm a part of the community. I'm not the community.
Well, I got to say, I think you're much better at business than you realize, because business, it's not just about having a good P&L and making a balance sheet and that kind of stuff. I mean, the things that I hear you saying that are really great are you're identifying a need, you're also knowing your own strengths and knowing like, hey, I am a meathead. I am tatted up. I love to, rack them and crack them on the, exactly. And that's okay. But here's how I'm going to take what I love and make it relatable to a wide range of people in this community. Yeah. I mean, I think that's really smart. And the fact that you were able to lean on, connections you had with the design of the logo, with the name of the gym, these are key decisions. I mean, I have friends that have made maybe not the mistake, but are in a place where they never thought their business would grow to the level it's at, and they named their business their name. And it's fascinating because several of them have businesses you could sell, but now they're basically selling their own name with it's tricky. It becomes this huge, there's lots of layers where that's tricky. So really wise. I think you've sought wise counsel. I think you've found a need and met it really well. You've known yourself, and your own limitations. So I think you're better at business than you think, man.
I think it's one of those things where X's and O's, I don't understand it, but I can tell you what I worked at a kiosk at the mall for Harley Davidson in Tyson's Corner, and you guys know what Tyson's Corner looks like. Oh yeah. It was also during Christmas, so I was directly adjacent to Santa's workshop.
That's a nightmare for me. You keep going.
It's a nightmare for
thousands
unless
of people.
You're 6 years old and you want to see Santa. It is So
hours of waiting in line.
It was right around the time that Frozen came out. So Let It Snow played on repeat for about 12 hours a day. And I worked at a commercial gym behind the counter, and I saw, the way, in my opinion, how a lot of these box gyms are trying to sell you on a product that you'll never use and keep you hooked to that product in a way that...
Is that the monthly membership? Is that the product you're saying with these box gyms?
I think it's the whole system. So I worked at a commercial gym, and while I was behind the counter, I mean, we had this system where if you signed up, you had to sign up in person and you had to talk to a rep. And then they try to sell you on like 16 other different packages. Once you were a member of the gym, and this is a monthly membership gym at the time, their computers were in a different state, but their monitors were located in Northern Virginia, where I was at the time. And they would scan you in. They would use the delay between the monitor and the system to check and see if you paid, while disguising it as customer service in the sense that they told us, turn around, grab a towel, hand them their keys and their towel, but go slow. Because if that thing pops up red that they have not paid their dues that month, hold their keys hostage essentially until they pay their dues or tell you why they haven't.
Oh, wow.
And then to cancel your membership, let's say you move states. To cancel your membership, you have two options. You can either cancel in person, or you can write a letter to the owner of the business at his house, essentially, saying your intent to cancel your membership. And then like 3 months later, they'd cancel it. And I thought to myself this whole time, if I'm a customer, you're holding me hostage. I'm not having a good experience, but the reason I don't cancel is because of the headache of the hurdle that you create for me. So when we were designing RB, it was like, okay, let's identify all of these things that we dislike about our industry that we're in, and let's remove all of those. Let's, instead of giving someone a hurdle and a frustration, let's give them a reason to support us because they enjoy the fact that we don't have contracts. It's always monthly. It's never renewal automatically. So you have to go in and buy a new month every single month you want to come into RB. You know, another problem with big box gyms is that they're always crowded around the same times. We limit how many people can be in there at a time. One, because this came out of COVID because we were limiting how many people were in there, period. But two, we noticed that everyone can use whatever piece of equipment they want. It's never overcrowded in there where you go, oh, I'd love to squat, but let me go ahead and wait another 30 minutes for a squat rack to be open. It's okay. I know a squat rack's gonna be open. They have 4 squat racks and there's only 4 people in there.
That's smart too, because every month I imagine you're creating this isn't the main reason you're doing this, but a secondary reason of limiting capacities, you're creating some scarcity. So like if I work out at Rockbridge Barbell and my month membership or my month is coming up, I need to pay again. I want to make sure I do that. So I get lined up for the spots I want.
And when you're scheduling, that is your hour. You're paying for that hour. That gym becomes, again, your gym for that hour. That's not, it's not my gym that you're working out at. So I think it creates a level of ownership in our community as well, where people want to be a part of what we're doing and they feel connected to us in that way. But my main hope, and I think we've done a halfway decent job of this, is letting people know that the decisions we're making from a business perspective is truly in the best interest of our clients and not necessarily us. We're not here to make $1 million.
Yeah.
If we want to make $1 million, we go to DC and we try it there. We're here to support our community and try to make enough to survive and, take care of ourselves, but also we're here for this community. I hope people receive that message and feel taken care of.
Red, when after Laser Scientist walked in the door and you had a favorable experience with him, when did you realize with Jane, oh, I think we can make this work? I think we can financially make this work, because no doubt the passion was there. Yeah, you had the skill, you had the ability, your interpersonal skills are off the chart. But when did you know we can do this?
I think it's one of those things where I still to this day have moments where I think we're going to be the next Gold's Gym, and then the next moment I'm thinking, are we going to be able to do this? I mean, it's. I asked Jess, the lady who owns the local Lunch Run Shop. I said, when does that feeling of oh no, we're failing, oh no, we're succeeding ever go away? And she goes, well, I don't think it ever truly goes away. But there was a moment I remember when I would say about 6 months in, when I lowered my schedule back down, when I felt comfortable enough to say, okay, we have enough clients coming in the door now where I don't have to work 78 hours a week. That was the moment that I kind of said, okay, we can make a career out of this. This is going to be something that we can do.
Sustainable.
And then we grew to a point where I was in total panic mode because I had more clients than my schedule could accommodate. And when you're running a personal training business, we have our groups that are great and phenomenal and we can grow there. But when you're a personal training coach, you can only work as so many hours in the day, and you're only seeing people based on that many hours. So we grew to a spot where I had more clients than hours, and people were, I think, getting perturbed by the fact that this is a routine-based business. This isn't something where, I'll go there every once in a while. I want to come twice a week, every week. So I had to get help, and that's where Gabe came in. He was one of my interns at ODU, and he was actually in grad school still at the time, working at William Penn University. And I called him and I said, hey, do you have any interest in doing private sector? Because he was in college at the time. And he said, sure, but I still have another couple months of school. So I explored some other options to see if I could get someone in there now. And it was really hard to find the right fit. And finally, he was available, and we could physically not do more. And we opened the doors up with him, and now we have some breathing room as far as growth goes. So that's really nice. But I think somewhere in the middle there, between lowering my hours from 78 down to hiring Gabe, it was one of those things where we're still constantly worried that next month we're not going to make it. But at the same time, all indications say that we're going to continue to grow, which is super exciting.
How long was that between when you opened your doors and hiring Gabe?
That's a good question. Over a year. I was, again, I'm not risk adverse, but I thought to myself, what's the way that we can do this that is the least damaging? So we bought all the equipment out of our own money in our pocket. Me and Jay, we put our whole life savings into it because this stuff is really expensive. And we got a great gym. We thought to ourselves, the only debt that we're going to have going into this is going to be the rent. If we can just cover the rent, then we're good. And then it got to a point where, again, about a year in, I was saying to myself, okay, now we have to figure out how to expand here because this is a tricky situation. And we still are fighting that to this day. We're still trying to figure out ways, how do we expand where we don't hurt the product? Our client base still knows that we're looking out for them. But we can continue to grow because the business is demanding it. I mean, at one point, I raised my rates almost double because it wasn't because I was looking for more money. It was purely because I had to stunt the growth in some way in order to shuffle things around to make it so that we could continue to grow later on. So we did that. I think there's a spoiler alert here. We might be changing that soon. So if you're listening to this and you're looking for maybe coming to RV, but you haven't been able to get in yet, keep your eye open for that.
Oh, cool.
But there are some things on the horizon that we're going to do that we're hopefully that's going to hopefully project us further so we can continue to stand out for our mission, which is make this thing affordable, make it accessible to people, and be able to be there for people in this endeavor that inherently can be a little more closed off or, scary for some people. Intimidating is the word. I think that, if I looked in my window and I just moved here, so this is a really interesting experience. I do this for a living. I work in a gym every single day of my life. Weights are my life for sure. They're a big piece of it, at least. I went to Virginia Beach with my wife on vacation one time. And I told Jane, I said, hey, I think we go try this other gym to go work out real quick. And I'll just get a quick little workout and come back. And it was a very similar vibe to us. I remember pulling up to the door outside and sitting there for a solid 10 minutes because the whole thing was intimidating to me. It was, this isn't my world. And it's almost like you're walking up to a house where there's a bulldog behind the fence where you're going, that guy looks super mean, but it's a dog. It could be really, really nice.
Right.
So it was that experience where I was saying to myself, is this a safe environment or not? And I do this for a living. I can't imagine someone who has to drum up all this courage to walk in our doors, seeing, again, me and Gabe, these two bald guys with tattoo sleeves and all this super heavy equipment. I can't imagine what that experience is like. So our whole mission has been remove that as much as possible.
Okay, so I love the story of Rockbridge Barbell to date. It's really fun for me, because I've just been walking by, seeing it grow. I know you've moved to a new location since your initial one on Main Street. Can you tell us where you see Rockbridge Barbell heading and what hurdles are in the way that you're going to need to
Yeah, I think
jump?
Where Rockbridge Barbell is heading is a tough question because there are 1,000 different directions that we've considered. And I think a lot of it has been through, conversations with like Dan. It's just like, hey man, what do you think? And asking our clients talking to our clients is a massive source of inspiration for me, where I can go to them and say, hey, what do you guys want? What do you guys want to see? Because that's the community that we're serving. So it's saying, okay, instead of me sitting in my, living room, drinking a cup of coffee, thinking about what I want, it's more about talking to those guys and figure out what they want. So my goal for Rockbridge Barbell is to find a way to scale it where we can reach more people, but I can do it passively in the sense where I don't have to necessarily be there I want to be there as much as I am right now. I love being there, but I want to reach more people and I want to help more people do what we're doing already.
So does that look like other locations, a bigger location here, other locations in other towns? Does that look like creating like a resource for people so when they're on vacation or they move away from Lexington? We do have a little bit of transiency here in our town, so they could still maybe be a customer on some. What do you think it looks like?
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
All three.
One of those things where we've considered new locations. We've considered having a bigger space. I'm very cautious to not disrupt what was already here, in the sense that Flex Fitness is right downtown. They do an excellent job and they have a slightly different business model than we do. The YMCA is also just outside of town. They have a slightly different business model than we do. There's a boxing gym at BP. There's Focus.
Oh,
Fitness.
really?
Yeah.
Did you know that?
No.
Whoa.
You guys,
would you go?
Larry is awesome.
I am interested in the White Rhino doing mixed martial arts stuff.
What's the White Rhino?
It's an MMA gym in Lexington.
What?
I think it's based out of Flex Fitness, actually. I think I don't quote me on that, but they have a space in Flex where they do BJJ and some other stuff as well.
Really?
So, but it's one of those things where we have, Focus Fitness is...
This town never ceases to amaze me.
And a lot of my clients call Focus $5 gym because that's what it is. It's $5 for the hour. Think of it as a better hotel gym is essentially what it is. They have better equipment than a hotel gym would, squat racks and some party equipment. But it's a pod that you rent for the hour, very similar to our business model, but they accommodate a lot of the things that we don't. So we have this thriving culture of all these different fitness-based businesses that are in downtown Lexington. We've been very careful to not be a predator of those other businesses.
Gotcha.
In the sense that we all have our own place. There's Pilates, there's yoga, there's everything you could ever want in this small town. So I think if we went bigger, it would be a conversation with predominantly the YMCA to say, hey, how do we do this in a way that's supportive and not detrimental to you guys as well? And just have this fully thriving community.
Red, what makes you so considerate about the other businesses? Because personally, if there was another bakery in town, I might not share that same mentality. Yeah. Just being frank.
Yeah, that's a business.
What's in your mind with that?
I think it's
because it sounds very noble. Very noble, doesn't it, buddy?
It's really all
Dan. Yeah.
it's really all just for show. I think it's one of those things where we don't have to. So if we were in DC, that would absolutely be the case, and it would be a lot more cutthroat. It's a very aggressive style of business. Here, we just don't need to. We can expand in a way that doesn't harm other people, or that's helpful for other places as well. Like, for example, if the YMCA decides to expand themselves and build a pool and a basketball court, then I would feel much more comfortable expanding into more of that space of the fitness side. But I think that if there ever becomes a time where we have to, that would be a different conversation. But right now, we just don't need to. We can fully sustain what we're doing and be supportive of other businesses as well. So it's fun when you get to be collaborative and not have to be aggressive, because then it opens doors too. We can do collaborative events. There was an open house for all the fitness stuff last year. Unfortunately, we were in the process of moving and we were actually out of town, so we couldn't be a part of it. But there's just so many cool events that happen where I want to have a business where I can include all my best friends in what I'm doing. All my friends of downtown, all my other businesses, like I want to include them because when you're having fun, it makes it that much more fun when you can do it with your friends. So that's kind of the way I see it. But again, if we ever had to, for the sake of RV to survive, I think that would be a different conversation. And as far as the online stuff goes, man, I think that is a space that is really saturated, but I do truly believe in what we're doing. I think that we have a ton of clients that come to us in their 4 years at WNL, or their 4 years at PMI, or 4 years at SVU and Buena Vista, or even their 3 years of law school. And they say, how can we continue to be a part of this without having to be located in Lexington? And I think that's a space that we can expand into. So right now we're looking at hiring one more person. We're looking at how do we expand. If I'm going to do it, I want to do it really well. So
would it look like virtual personal training type stuff? Like, let's talk about your goals, make a diet, make an exercise plan, etc. Or would it look like a more general app type thing? Which way are you thinking?
I don't know yet. That's something that we're exploring. I think that right now, if we were to do online personal training, it eats up a lot of time. So it's very possible that we do that. But I think that the more likely scenario, at least in the short term, is we do something basically where we have our group training right now, which is one of my favorite products that we have. Where
can you describe that to the audience?
It's the greatest thing, dude. It's one of these things that we started it off where I didn't know what to expect. And now we have these little pods of groups that are one of my groups, the 6 p.m. on Monday, is a particularly raucous crew. And in a good way. It's comprised of, 3 female clients of mine one older guy, Bill, who's the man. I mean, this guy has totally blossomed at RB now. I mean, he's lifting some awesome weights. Him and my wife have this little like unspoken competitive thing going. They live together. Awesome. They're the most supportive of each other, but they live together every time and they have a blast. But that crew now goes to Don Tequila's like every Wednesday, or not every Wednesday, but often once a month. Maybe on Wednesdays for margaritas. Just fun. Awesome. Not even the day that they lift. It's not like they're going over. It's like we're meeting there to be with those people.
And so you guys do like a pre-planned group workout, or are people doing individual stuff just at the same time?
The way we do it is we try to capture as much of what the personal training is pro strength and conditioning. It's what I would do with guys who are, at the pro level. And that can be very detailed in the sense that our conversation that we're having is me gathering information to be able to input into your workout, where I might ask you, hey, what did you do this weekend? But what I'm listening for is, I had to go, I went on vacation, I went to a bachelor party. Okay, that brings stress down. Or it could be, dude, I slept for 48 hours. And I say, we have green lights all ahead. I'm gathering information to adjust it. That's what you would do in the pro world. The group is more of this, we have this base. So we take all of our group people, we smush them up into one person. And we say, okay, what does that one person need? And then what's kind of fun as well, like we throw a lot more, I would say, fun bits in there, just that, everyone wants to do bicep curls, or everyone wants to do some bunch of core stuff. So like we do a bunch of core stuff in groups, but it's take that massive population, smush it down to one person, and then deviate depending on the individual that we get in there that day. So if my group is that 6 p.m. Monday crew that comes in and they're all at differing levels, one person might have this pre-existing shoulder injury that we're dealing with. Another person might say, hey, I ran 12 miles this weekend. The other person might say, like I said, I slept for 48 hours and I ate nothing but pizza and I'm ready to rock. So we adjust stuff that day given that person. And it might be exercise variation. It might be volume, which is how many sets and reps you're doing. It might be, everything. And there's no specific load recommendations as either, in the sense that the weights that you're going to be using are the weights that are right for you. It's not just like I have 3 barbells set up and pick one. It's find to the pound, what is the best weight for you to be using at that time? And then how do we scale that over time? We're still reporting weights down so we can tell you, hey, last week we ended with this weight. This is what we recommend for you today. And this is each person that comes into those groups. The groups are only 6 people, so it's very manageable to do so. And it's become one of my favorite things. I love personal training. That's my passion. I love having this one-on-one relationships with people where you can really develop them. But the groups are they're these individual quirky teams and these combination of people that you would never dream up in a million years. And they all have formed these great relationships. And we've actually we've thought about multiple times about making like group t-shirts.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking we need to, if there's any slots, we need to get a group, We
do.
Me, get, Davey, a couple other local meatheads.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get over my self-consciousness about working out in front of Red, but
yeah, I'm not taking my shirt off. That's for sure.
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
Neutralize the playing field.
Yeah, we actually don't need a group T-shirt.
That's a perfect segue into. I wanted to talk to you about bodybuilding a little bit because so that's different than from outside looking in, right? You weren't bodybuilding specifically until fairly recently, maybe a year ago.
Yes, I'm the most amateur you possibly could ever be. So I did my first show earlier this year. It was a incredibly unique experience. That one that I liked so much that I'm going to do it again in March. But it was something that grew out of necessity for me where I needed a competitive outlet. And I hated the idea of the gym becoming competitive for all the reasons we highlighted earlier of saying, it doesn't have to be with other businesses. Let's not make it that way. And if I crack open that competitive door, it is really hard to close it. So, and there have been moments in opening RB where I've had that door crack open. I've had to like slam it shut. And I did want to play baseball because I had already done that for 20 years and I love baseball. But when you're good enough at something to play it at a level where you can consciously say, okay, this is where I'm at, it's really hard to go back into that space and not expect to be that good. So I started playing golf and then I thought this will be my competitive outlet. But golf is a thing where I started to realize I really enjoy being bad at golf because if I go out there with my buddies on like a Saturday afternoon, I can have a drink, we can ride the carts, we can
can make it around 18. Yeah.
It's fun. It's relaxing. It's chill. I don't want it to become something where I have to be better every single time. So bodybuilding was one of those things where I'm already in the space every day. I'm already in the gym. I have this opportunity to do something to push myself outside my comfort zone. It's something I've always considered doing, but it was never something that I could pour time into until last year when we got to a comfortable place in the business. So I think it was something that I was like, all right, let's pull the trigger on this now. And I actually had a buddy of mine, CJ, who was willing to do it with me. So it became this thing where we could he was living in Northern Virginia at the time. I was down here. We could kind of connect over that. He would come down periodically for a little while and train with me. And it was very fun. So
did you guys do like the same show? Like, did you have kind of a similar end goal or something?
We did different classes of the same show.
Okay. So what's the class you competed in?
So I did debut bodybuilding was the one that I really wanted to do well in. So there's a couple different divisions, basically.
Okay.
There's bodybuilding, which is kind of the stereotypical, like, be as big as you possibly can.
Like the Mr. Olympia guys.
Yes, yeah. The Olympia guys. And Olympia Open. So that's what you're thinking of like the really big dudes. And I competed in a federation that was drug tested. So it's a little different between non-drug tested and drug tested. But for the most part, it's comparable. So I was in bodybuilding. I also ended up doing something called Classic, which is think Arnold Schwarzenegger aesthetics, kind of that build of skinny waist, broad shoulders, that kind of look. And then there's also Physique, which is think bigger surfer model, essentially. They wear the trunks.
I was gonna say they wear the board shorts, right?
Shorts, yeah.
That seems a lot more comfortable than the Speedo.
It's a lot. So my buddy did the Physique. I did bodybuilding and Classic. Okay. So it was we got to compete next to each other, but not directly against each other, which is, I think, really nice.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. But it was one of those experiences where I learned a lot about myself, especially towards the end when all of a sudden, my job is a job where you can't ask somebody to deadlift or squat or do any exercise for that matter and not have energy yourself. If you came in at 6 a.m. and I was like, all right, buddy, go ahead. Let's do this, this, and this. You'd be like, dude, I'm paying you right now and this is what you're giving me. Right. So I want you to not, as much as I possibly can, not be able to tell if I'm tired or not. If you come in there, I'm going to try to give you the energy that I have. And it's not going to be rah over the top, but it's going to be genuine. This
enthusiasm.
Yeah, every single time.
Man, that's, and sometimes you're dieting and depleted and
What'd you learn about yourself?
Oh my gosh. There are days when I woke up and
do you like what you discovered?
I love food as well. Food is amazing. So it's not one of those things where you have to eat a specific diet. It's just, you have to eat quantities are different, obviously.
Well, and you were bigger. Like, what weight were you and what did you go down to?
Yeah, I was 230 when I started prep last year. And I would say I had weight to lose, but it wasn't a terrible 230. It was a very healthy 230. And I got down, the lowest point in prep was 179.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. A lot of weight. So
I saw you. I think I told you this. I was like scrolling on Instagram. I see Rockbridge Barbell's Instagram. I'm like, oh, who's that new guy that looks just like Red? He's just so skinny. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Scrolling through the picture, like, that's him. Oh my gosh.
So my stage weight was 185. So a little bit off the lowest point to get on stage.
Okay.
And you load it at that point when you're going on stage. It's all like cellular biology. You're focusing on creating as much intracellular swelling as possible while reducing the amount of fluid on the extracellular side.
So what's that, like water and carbs or something? Or
it's very specific order of operations here. And I actually hired a coach to help me with this whole prep as well. Yeah. One, because I do this for a living, yes, but bodybuilding is a whole nother beast. And when you're eating, not a lot of food and you're that lean, your hormones take over and they tell you stuff that's not necessarily true. So you're kind of like, oh, you're literally dying throughout the process. You're losing body fat. Your body's telling you, hey, you're dying. You have to tell yourself a lot, like, hey, no, you're actually not dying because you're 230 pounds. And, again, you have weight that you can lose. It's okay. But when you get down to the bottom, it's kind of like, all right, now you are fighting against things that are not, and I want to be very clear about this. Bodybuilding is not healthy. There's no bit about it that's healthy. When you get down that lean, you are at a dangerous point. Very careful with how you're doing it. I advise everybody who wants to do it, hire that coach because it's going to make it safer.
Has it made you be a better personal training coach, just the cellular biology level of understanding the body.
I think at that, yes, because I can help people when everyone has those moments. I've had those moments where you wake up and you go, oh my God, what happened? You know, yesterday I felt really good about myself. And today I'm looking in the mirror and I'm going, this is not what I want. And a lot of the times it all makes sense if you understand the biology of it. If you say, okay, last night I went out and I ate half of a pizza and I had a bunch of water, you're going to retain a lot of that water. You know, sodium content was up, all this stuff. Again, it's going to make sense. If you don't have that basis of understanding, if you're just looking at this from a perspective of training and nutrition and you're not understanding the details of it all, then you can panic, I think. So it helped me there. It also, Jane has helped me a ton with my coaching as well. With her background, she's a school social worker and she's what's called an LCSW. So she can do some counseling and things. And her understanding of, you know, there are more factors in here. And this is the same thing on the nutrition side of things. There's more factors at play than just eat less or eat more. It's not a X's and O's thing at the end of the day. On paper, absolutely. If you eat less than you're expending, you're going to lose weight. If you eat more than you're expending, you're going to gain weight. And if you're eating the same, which our body likes to stay at, you're going to stay the same. But, you know, there's emotions around eating. There's the body is very powerful and what it can do to your brain. So I think that understanding even, you know, how trauma affects training, how generational, you know, what's the word for it? Generational standards change training. You know, I have some older female clients that have been told their whole lives, never stick your butt out, ever. That's so rude. You should never do that. When I'm trying to teach them how to hinge, like do an RDL or a deadlift, you got to stick your butt out. So
safe
for them, I had 2 or 3 clients tell me, you know, this is really interesting. I've always been told not to do this. So when I'm trying to teach them now going into experiences with some older female clients, I say, hey, I understand that this might be a preconditioned thing in your head. We have to kind of get through that. Or, you know, when you're working with clients with a trauma background, it's like, okay, you have to be very careful what exercises you're asking them to do. Certain exercises can drum up some pretty negative experiences for them. So having that understanding going into the scenario versus, you know, learning that after the fact is super helpful. So between bodybuilding and Jane's background as an LCSW, it's really reshaped how I see my own coaching. It's very much so not X's and O's anymore. It's more total system. It's understanding the person and what they need at that time. And sometimes there are clients that come in and you're like, you know what, dude, today we just need to do some bicep curls and we need to have a talk and that's it, you know? And other days it's, no, we need to get after this a little bit. We're in a good spot. Let's do it. So it's interesting.
Would you say, Jane, after doing one of these bodybuilding shows, is she still supportive of you doing another one? Like what was
I think so. I think Jane's super supportive of me regardless. I think that it was interesting for her as well to see me go through it. When I talked about doing another one, she was totally on board, but you know, I think it's hard on spouses as well. I mean, seeing me go through that change and also just the dietary things as well. I think it's really hard to be around people that are doing certain things with their nutrition or their training and not start to subconsciously either absorb some of those habits or even look at yourself in a different way. So I think that was probably minimal for Jane, but there was definitely some of that. And when you're, you know, at the end of the day, when it was down to the wire, it's chicken and vegetables and it's not particularly fun.
Yeah.
You know, I'll get excited about frozen blueberries at that point.
Man.
So it's something that I think that where I can't have any of this stuff in the house. If I do, I have zero self-control. You put Skittles in front of me.
Jane's hiding. She's hiding the bags of Skittles.
You know, it's one of those things. So I think that she's supportive of me in it because she's supportive in a lot of things I do. But it was a unique experience for her as well.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Should we jump into the lightning round and close this out?
Lightning round it is.
Do you have one dialed in?
I got a lot. Mine are all stupid as usual, or dumb questions, I should say. You ready?
You go.
Yeah. Okay. We were talking boots earlier. Yeah. What's your favorite boot?
Oh my gosh. So I actually just got new boots when I went to a Mexico wedding. Not a story here, but I just got.
You tell us now at the end of the podcast.
It's a long story.
Mexico wedding
in Mexico in a leather market.
We got to get you back on for that one. Right. And you bought a pair of boots?
I just got a pair.
And they're your favorite pair of boots?
These are still my favorite. Jane bought these ones. They're up there. They're very cool boots. They're legit cowboy boots. But these ones are my favorite. I got these in South Dakota. Jane bought them for me. for our first anniversary in South Dakota, where she's from.
Oh, cool.
At a Red Wing store. So these are Irish Setter, the work line of Red Wing. Favorite boots for sure. But I will get these resold multiple times, I promise.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
How would you describe the Sturgis motorcycle rally in one word?
In one word, Sturgis Motorcycle Rally is, well, there's two words. You can't do it in one. It's absolute chaos.
Okay.
Absolute chaos is, you can say chaos, but that doesn't do it justice.
Yeah,
It is chaos.
absolute chaos. Will you do it again?
100%.
Okay.
I've done it twice now. It will be something that we do, I would say, semi-routinely with me and my buddy Mason. One of him, the best man at the wedding. Awesome guy. Best friend. We'll go out there periodically, I'm sure.
Okay. Mine was, my Sturgis question was,
Yeah.
did you ride out there or did you like trailer? Did you have a support vehicle or did you literally drive?
Yeah, so-
or ride from Virginia out west?
We attempted to ride the second time. My buddy actually ended up getting deployed right during Sturgis. So we instead went and rode through the Poconos, which was a very fun trip. But both times we've gone out there, first time we flew to Salt Lake City and met our bikes there and rode through all the national parks. Unbelievable experience that I highly recommend for anyone to ride.
Rode up. That's cool.
Wonderful. Second time, I actually trailered we met, it was me, my buddy, his brother, and his dad, and a couple of his dad's best friends. I trailered all the bikes out, met them in Rapid City, South Dakota. We rode from there, left the trailer in Rapid City. But that was an experience itself. I had, over the course of the 2 weeks that trip went, we had, I think, 4 blown tires on the trailer.
Oh my gosh.
On the highway, going full speed with 6 motorcycles in the back. And I was replacing trailer tires. I am, I would say, more handy because of that trip. I have dealt with it was an exciting trip. I'll say that.
Oh my gosh.
What does success look like for you business wise, for you and Jane? How do you define success for you?
I think the success goal is self-sustainability and in a very few words, create an ecosystem that lives on its own. I think it's very akin to farming in the sense that, or I would imagine what farming is. I know nothing about farming, but where you are trying to take care of a system. And as long as the system is thriving, you're going to be successful. I think that that's my goal for RB. Create something that I don't have to daily be, I think I'm always going to have to be involved, but something where I can let it go and it just lives. It's its own beast. That's my goal for it. That's success.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah.
I just want to encourage you again. I think you're doing a great job in business. I love your heart for being a business in this community. Even what you're saying about working with other gyms that are, or other yoga studios and stuff that are already doing other fitness things. I mean, I think you've got a great attitude towards growing your business, and I'm stoked to see where it goes. I think we definitely
I think we need to
make a group workout.
You guys say the word
for sure.
All right.
Oh
Okay.
man, we'll regret it. You'll
know.
destroy us.
By the time we have Red back on, we need to have committed to at least a once a week group session at
Once
RB.
a week.
Even more manageable. I would say you have to come out for at least one thing.
Yeah, I was thinking just one
You think it's too
session.
ambitious?
Yeah, once a week.
By the time you guys come back, by the time I come back on this podcast, you guys both need to have RB tattoos.
All right.
Oh
okay.
gosh,
Not only committing to one workout, but the entire
tattoo might be the easiest way out of
maybe
this.
we'll just skip the group workout and we'll get a tattoo.
Oh my god,
All right,
Oh my
we'll
gosh.
think that out. I don't want to be
Yeah.
over ambitious here, but
that'd be amazing.
I
I'm
need to get in
committed to
shape.
at least one. We'll get one in.
Give it a shot, and I think that it'll be something that you keep coming back for.
Heck yeah, man.
Thanks, Red.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me,
Appreciate it.
guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Committed.
Bonus rapid fire questions. We
Red,
look like
curious.
the biggest meatheads right
Yeah,
now.
everyone looks so, it just glistens at this
Yeah.
bodybuilding competition.
Yeah.
At least the Instagram pictures. So, what are you covering your body with to
Yeah.
look so good?
This
Is it like lard?
super Interesting. It is lard. Actually.
No
I'm
way.
just kidding.
Oh, I was like, dude, we can partner.
Farming, farming opportunity.
So the regular base tan is just self tanner. It's like the stuff. Well, you can also get. I got it sprayed on me, which is another whole nother story. I mean, it's one of the most.
At the show, or is this in Lexington? You went to the spray
show.
tan facility.
I wanted to go in Lexington, but I didn't know what I was doing, so I figured this show was probably going to be the best bet. And you have to sleep on sheets that you bring with you because it's so much tanner. It's unbelievable how much tanner they put on you, but you have to. I mean, you look the best.
What's the idea there? The contrast,
The contrast,
the shadow contrast.
So, and I am my heritage is Irish and Nordic, so they're
Red, hence
it's
the red.
about as white as you can possibly be. So the amount of tanner they changed me tremendously. So I got sprayed, and that was an experience because you can essentially only wear a sock while you're getting sprayed.
Oh my gosh. Is it a dude or is it?
It wasn't. And
you've never met this person before?
No,
Probably for the best.
And I think they're semi used to it because it's just part of the deal for them. But for me, it was incredibly, I kind of had to just lean into that situation. I told them going, I was like, I'm sure you do this all the time. I'm a little nervous, but like, help me out here. Help me feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
And they were incredibly professional. She did a great job.
Oh my gosh.
The interesting thing though, is that right before you go on stage, they put a glaze on you. And this is, I had no idea.
Like a Krispy Kreme.
Someone is glazing you, or is like Jane there as your personal assistant?
The same tanner is glazing you.
Whoa.
And they put on the same thing they put on show horses. Oh, man. So they pull out this little aerosol can and it has a horse on it. I'm like, what is that? And she goes, oh, it's actually what they put on the horse coats to make them shine when they're doing dressage. And I was blown away. I was so shocked. I from then on, I basically refer to myself as a thoroughbred the rest of it.
The thoroughbred.
Yeah, but it was unbelievable. It was such a unique experience.
So many things. Okay, favorite protein powder.
So we've partnered actually with a company called BioSteel. So there's a discount.
BioSteel
and
protein.
We have no business partner with them. The guy who helps us out with them, they're a massive company based out of Canada.
Yeah.
Think Gatorade of Canada.
Oh.
When I was with the Nats and DC United, I worked with them and one of their guys. And he's just such a nice guy that he's continued to kind of work with us. When we brought him the idea of Rockridge Barbell, he was like, how can we support you?
So cool. So can you get it? We could buy it at Rockridge Barbell or website?
Right now, you have to go to the website, but if you use the Rockridge Barbell discount code, you get I think it's like 30% off products, and it's a really high quality one. There's some other really good ones out there, but those are the guys that we chose to partner with. Well, let's say they chose to partner with us.
Yeah.
We are just so grateful that they gave us that opportunity. So.
That's amazing.
So awesome.
Yeah.
Wait, do we need the code?
Do you want to get the code?
Yeah.
I think it's Rockridge Barbell. I think it's Rockridge Barbell.
On the BioSteel website?
Yep.
Yeah.
And they've had, if anyone's trying to use this right away, they had an issue with it. I think we're getting it resolved. So if it doesn't work right now, give it another
try
shot.
again tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly right.
Can you give the 30-second pep talk that you would provide an individual that is sitting in their vehicle outside Rockridge Barbell? Maybe it's me, maybe it's sorority girl. Like, Red's going to watch me work out for 30 minutes. Like what's your pep talk to this person to enter this space that to you, and we all like, is such a healthy space to be in? How do you reduce that barrier of entry for that individual?
I think it's part of our onboarding process, but I think a lot of it is just giving personal anecdotes, giving them the security of you're not the only one to feel like this. Everybody feels like this, including myself. I mean, when I started my lifting journey, it was for sport performance. And now I usually tell people I purely work out to look better naked for my wife. So, if that's the scenario, that's why you're here. It's okay to identify that and be here for that. Along the way, too, it's about setting expectations. So like you guys were just saying about how, oh my gosh, it's going to be painful. It should never be painful. It's going to be hard. It's hard work. I mean, lifting weights is tough, but you should always try to find that medium plus difficulty level where this is a challenge. I know I can do it, but it's going to be hard. That's kind of where you want to live. And then as far as the other side of things is gauging their recovery. So if they come off and they're smoked and the next day they have those stairs are like Mount Everest or coming down them, they're tumbling. That is information that we need to be able to adjust to make sure that next time we're not having that sensation. And instead it's more of that, I could tell I did something, but I'm not smoked by any means. I can do that again. Yeah. But it's breaking down those barriers, getting rid of those expectations so that when they come into our space, they can have that new framework. And, it's the same thing for guys who've been lifting for years. It's just on the other side of things where they come in, they go, well, when I do dumbbell bench press, I use the 80s, or I use the 40s, or I use the 20s. It's no, you don't. Here, we're going to start from zero. We're going to see where you're at. And that way you don't there's a reason why you're coming to me. And it's most likely because either accountability or most likely, and generally what we see, it's I've had a hard time doing this on my own. I either get hurt or there's some other reason I'm not seeing the results I want to see. So it's leaning into let's hand over the same thing I dealt with our logo. It's giving up control, giving up. I'm here for a reason. Allow the professionals to be professionals and do their job and not try to screw up the logo by adding something silly in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. We'll have to keep that in mind for our group class.
That's right.
I mean,
I have another dumb question. What bike do you ride?
I have Harley. So I've had all of my friends laugh at me because I have a problem with gym equipment and motorcycles. I like to buy a lot of them. Mm-hmm. So I started off on what's called a dual sport motorcycle, which is a on-road, off-road bike.
Does Harley make a dual sport, like a KTM or something?
They have an adventure bike now, but they didn't then. I owned it was a Suzuki at the time. But I bought my first Harley immediately after that because that's what I always wanted. I had a little Sportster, and you can imagine a 230-pound guy riding a Sportster.
Yeah, you're like 6'2", 6'3".
I rode that to Sturgis on the first time.
Oh, man.
So it was hilarious. And I made it work, and I got to the end of that trip, and I go, I'm never riding out here on a Sportster, which I think most people can. Even though I was only Salt Lake to there, I think most people can kind of advise me to not do that again. Right. That's the right word. And then I bought a massive bike, a big touring bike, and it's a great bike. I still have the bike to this day. It's actually my dad's bike right now. And then from there, I bought a Ducati, which is a sports bike.
Oh yeah,
and
totally new direction.
Yeah, I started watching.
This was in your DC United days, wasn't it? You're thinking soccer. You're thinking I got to get a sports bike.
I actually got it when I was working for the Nats. I watched a lot of motorcycle racing, and I was like, "This is it. This is so cool." And then I realized why I should never have a Ducati is because those things don't like to go slow.
Yeah.
The guy literally at the dealership was like, "Don't ride this slow because it'll stall out if they'll get too hot and it'll stall out because it's air cooled. It's the last air cooled Ducati." And then sold that and bought my dream bike, which is a 1986 Harley Davidson FXR, which they don't make anymore.
Oh, cool.
And I still have that bike to this day. So,
super cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome. That's all we got.
Okay.
All right,
awesome.
Real name.
Oh, yes. Red. The people want to know.
The people want to know, and it's never been said out loud. So, this is a big deal. But Ryan is actually my real name.
Really?
Yes. You can tell what season of life people have met me in because I've been going by Red since basically first grade. And if someone knows me from pre-first grade but hasn't really seen me since, they will still call me Ryan.
Whoa, that's way back.
That's way back. So there's a very select group of people that call me Ryan still, but everyone else, my grandparents call me Red. My parents call me Red. Everybody calls me Red. My mom actually forgot. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Mom. One time someone asked her that question, and she was like, she forgot what my real name was.
Oh, my goodness.
Jane had to be like, it's Ryan.
It's
Ryan's.
Remember?
Yeah, Ryan's the real name.
That's awesome. Well, I have that same thing with Buddy. Obviously not. Well, maybe not obvious, but that's not my real name. And I think it's great because I'll get a phone call and they'll be like, "Hey, is James there?" And you can tell this person does not know me. It's like some telemarketer, you know.
James is not here.
Yeah, James is never here.
That's right. That's right. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It is a weird thing though when you have a name that is so memorable, like Buddy, or in my case, like Red. You have a mnemonic device built in my face.
Yeah.
So a lot of people remember my names. I'm actually terrible with names, and I have that level of meeting someone for the first time where I'm like, okay, don't say something silly. Don't say something silly. And they'll say their name to me and I totally miss it half the time.
Yeah.
And then they'll remember mine, see me 6 months later, and be like, "Hey, Red, what's up?" And I'm, "Hey, guy.
Yeah.
How are you?"
You have a very distinct, memorable look with the shaved head and the red beard.
I like to talk a lot. So that also helps.
Yeah. I have a similar issue but I think people genuinely aren't remembering my name, but I think maybe they did because they're like, "Oh, Buddy, what's up?" And I'm like,
so funny.
Do we know each other or are you just being friendly? Because I feel like I don't know your name. I can take a stab.
That's even worse than my situation.
Oh yeah,
See,
my whole life.
How lucky you are, man. You have a very easy.
I never knew. I never knew how to be grateful. Thanks, Red, so much.
Yeah, thanks.
So fun.